I think it's a massive PR move to re-establish Harry in the hearts, basically, of the British people. Those are the people that he really cares about. And I think that I mean, I'm very surprised he gave an interview at all, because he had agreed that he wouldn't. But I think he's being pushed by his PRs. And if Harry is told that's what he should do, that I mean, I think he's a military man. Remember, he's in a war zone, and I think he's just sort of following orders. But if only he wouldn't say anything, it would have been better to my mind, because people start to think, well, of course it's about his dad, and surely that's obvious, Harry. It's always been about his dad. His father's the king. I think I feel it's a little ingenuous, frankly. And then why did he bother? I know he was asked the questions, but why did he bother to say that he felt that he had a clear conscience about his book? And he knew that some of the family, well, I think on another occasion, he said he felt the family would probably never speak to him again. But why does he keep going on about it? Really, silence is golden in his case, and he just doesn't get that message. Well, I think the problem here is that Charles is age 77. He's his next birthday. He wants to have remain in touch with his son. He doesn't want to alienate his son any more than necessary. So I think Charles would have looked really uh, bad if he hadn't tried to find time for this meeting. I don't think that would have reflected very well on him as a Christian and head of the church and religion. He's all about forgiveness, and Charles talks about that. I think he had no choice but to meet Harry, and I'm sure that he was very wary of what he said. But of course, he's a father. He wants to see his son, and he wants to see his grandchildren at some stage. And I'm probably he doesn't want to see Meghan, but that would be irrelevant. I mean, many parents have to deal with spouses and husbands that they don't, of their children that they don't like. I think that just goes with the territory. So I think it was kind of a situation that had to happen. Well, I feel like, I mean, Harry seemed to be it was very last minute. It appeared, from all the press reports that it was a very last minute kind of meeting, although obviously Harry hoped it would happen. And I think, yes, I personally feel it probably was a push, more of a push from his father than from Harry. But Harry was certainly going to take, as much advantage as he could, because he'd done very well with all his charities, and he was going on that evening for a meeting with Invictus, a reception. And Harry needs the stardust of his father. He needs people to see him as the son of a king. His earning power is related to who he is. I mean, being, quite plain about it. And I'm sure, he must have thought this, you know, without who he is. Harry would not be interested to anyone in California, but because he is the son of a king and the brother of an heir to the throne, he is of great interest, and he needs that connection. I mean, also America is where he makes his money, and Americans do not like the idea of the split family, which Meghan's already done absolutely perfectly, but they don't. They always say, and in my experience, they've always said, we don't like the way that Harry doesn't speak to the rest of his family, or the rest of his family don't speak to him because he's not to be trusted. So I think, as I said earlier, this is a big PR push, and all the smiles to the press that Harry has spent the last 5 years looking straight through the press and ignoring them. And suddenly on this trip, so I understand, he was all smiles and charm, which of course is the Harry we remember of old. I'm not sure that Harry knows what a clear conscience is, um, because you don't badmouth your family in print and then have a clear conscience. Whether what he was saying was true or not, you just don't do that. and it has far-reaching consequences, as it has had with Harry. But Harry obviously wants to wipe the slate clean. But uh, people's memories are a little bit longer than that, and I think a lot of the royal family are still very angry. And I suspect that Charles isn't particularly happy with his son, but to him, it's more important to welcome Harry, if not back into the family, at least back into his own, personal fold, because at least Charles can then keep an eye on what he's doing as well. At least, the Buckingham Palace have a liaison with Harry's very highly paid PR people. So at least they know what's going on. It's a better situation than it was before. I think this is the beginning rather than the middle. It's not, and it's not the end. So I think this is certainly a start, but I don't think we should read too much into this. I mean, they've had just under an hour's meeting, and the first meeting they've had for over a year. So I don't think too much should be read into it. And also, when I imagine when you have these kind of slightly difficult meetings, you're not going to rush in and say, oh, Papa, I'm really sorry for everything I've done. That was just never going to happen. So you kind of walk around the edges of the conversation. Then maybe they did discuss something that was meaningful. We hopefully will never know that. But at least it was a beginning. And I think Charles has played this very well. And I think Harry's played it reasonably well. And I just wish that he hadn't then given an interview. Now the story continues, and now it's more about Harry. And Harry must know that every time he opens his mouth, it's going to be more about Harry, which is exactly what the king didn't want him to do. But as I said, I think Harry's got a very pushy, smart PR team, a new PR team behind him, and they want the world to know that Harry is friendly with the king. That is really important for Harry's future and Harry's earning powers.